ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Pranam to all the participants and welcome once again on our fourth day of TKDL IKS-TKDL workshop. Madam and sir, both of are with us. So today, Madam will talk about the ethical aspects of TK, traditional knowledge, how we can handle uh, how we can preserve, protect, and disseminate ethically. That's the main focus of today's presentation. Before Madam starts, we just want to repeat once again, please complete the daily assessment after the session. And today is the fourth day. Then on Monday, we'll have the concluding session by Vishwajanani madam, then we'll go to the final assessment on Monday. And every updates will be updated in the Google Drive folder. So now I request madam to start your 50 minutes presentation.
Thank you, Piyush ji. Am I audible?
Yes, perfect.
So, namaste to all. A very good afternoon to everyone. I'll just share my presentation.
Yes.
So, I hope it's visible.
Yes, perfect.
All right. So, thank you once again. And we had some aspects of traditional knowledge, including what is meant by traditional knowledge, why do we need to protect traditional knowledge, and what are the ways of protecting traditional knowledge, which we discussed yesterday. So today, in a manner, we'll be continuing from where we left off yesterday. So here we talk about how to handle and work with traditional knowledge. Basically, I'll be talking about the ethical aspects, because I already mentioned to you yesterday that as far as traditional knowledge is concerned, there is no legal provisions available in the country. So when we are handling and working with traditional knowledge, we'll have to keep certain things in mind, considering that traditional knowledge is owned and created, or the custodians are certain people, certain community whose rights should be respected. Okay, so this is the aspect of the joint workshop where we are talking about traditional knowledge, intellectual property rights, and people's rights. So this is majorly, we will be dealing with the people's rights today. So once again, to remind you, what are the slides are moving, Piyush. Have I gone to the second slide?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, all right. Thank you. So when we are talking about the relevant traditional knowledge, we already discussed this aspect yesterday. So we have the undisclosed knowledge, and we also have the knowledge which is available in text, manuscripts, and so on. Okay. So here, when we deal with the ethical aspects, it is more relevant to the undisclosed knowledge, that is the oral knowledge or the folk knowledge that is available with communities and people. Okay, so undisclosed knowledge can be of different types. In the sense, it could be completely secret, that is nobody is aware of that knowledge except the person practicing it, or maybe the community practicing it, or family practicing. Sometimes it is not codified, that is it is not written or converted into any format which is readable or accessible. Okay, so in that way it is non-codified, so it is basically only passed on from person to person just by oral tradition, so no one else will know of it. And sometimes it is not accessible to all, so has restricted access. So all these forms of knowledge I would refer to as undisclosed knowledge. Okay, So here we are talking about the oral tribal folk knowledge present with families, communities, and individuals. Also manuscripts. Why manuscripts? Here it is codified, but at times it will be secret and not accessible to all. Okay. So such information also we would include in the undisclosed knowledge, and it is relevant to the discussion of today. So who are the stakeholders? Why I'm talking about these stakeholders later on, I will tell you. They are also involved in the chain of right from the access to the final use or final commercial use of the particular traditional knowledge. So these are all the actors who are involved in the traditional knowledge, what you call a chain per se. Okay. So you have the creators, that is people who have created the traditional knowledge. Not necessarily they are the current generation, but as I said, traditional knowledge is a constantly evolving knowledge. So it can be someone who has innovated at some level, or it could be someone who is a descendant of the particular creator. Okay. Then we have practitioners. Practitioners are those who practice the particular traditional knowledge. They are not necessarily the creators. They could be creators or they could not be creators. So they are practitioners. Sometimes they you'll have owners of the traditional knowledge. Why? Because they may not be creators nor practitioners, but in some way they are the owners or and sometimes even custodians of the particular traditional knowledge. Again, there are intermediaries. Now we talk about tribal communities, or you talk about people who hold a particular traditional knowledge and a link between a common person. Okay, often that link doesn't exist, and there are people who will help bridging that gap, like somebody leading you to the particular community or leading you to understand what is the kind of knowledge that is present. Such people we would refer to as intermediaries. They may not be just common people, they may be closely linked to the particular tribe and have been working closely with them at a social and cultural level. Okay. There are some things we need to know when we are talking about the traditional knowledge context here. That is, when we're talking about ethical practices, we need to understand what are the international provisions that are present in this particular domain. Okay, so we did discuss some things yesterday, like what are the legislations in India which are indirectly relevant to traditional knowledge. Also, we spoke about what is present in the Indian patent law regarding traditional knowledge. But I also told you that when we talk of traditional knowledge, there are two important aspects. One is the free and prior informed consent, and the other is the access and benefit sharing. Okay, so there is something in the international context. This is relevant only to biological diversity, in the sense it's only to genetic resources. So what do I mean by genetic resources? Genetic resources could be anything that is of plant, animal origin, and it has a functional unity of heredity. Okay, all such materials will be genetic materials. It could be of plant, animal, it could be microbial origin also. So all these will be genetic materials, and they will have some commercial value. It will have some potential value, or it as actual value or some potential value. Okay, that is the way it is defined in the Convention of Biological Diversity. So what does the CBD entail? It deals with, it has three objectives. One is conservation, the other is sustainable use, and the third is fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the utilization of those genetic resources. And this includes appropriate access to. Okay. As a fallout of the CBD, there was also the Nagoya Protocol, which is a legal framework for effective implementation of benefit sharing. And it also has the element of prior informed consent. So it speaks about whenever you're taking any material or accessing any material, genetic resources, then proper prior informed consent should be taken, and whatever use, it should be implemented as per the prior informed consent. Okay. India is a signatory to the Convention on Biological Diversity. This is a legally binding international instrument. So if there are certain things, like you must have heard of the climate change agreement, where the Paris Convention, where it happened, and there where you are all countries have signed that they would get the pollution level, or will get the or certain things that is related to climate change, and they have certain obligations which they have to implement. Okay. Similarly, in the case of CBD also, India is a signatory, and we are bound by the objectives and the provisions that are given in the CBD, which is why we enacted a Biological Diversity Act way back in 2002, which was recently amended. As per the Biological Diversity Act, there are three things. One thing I already mentioned yesterday, that was they create something called People's Biodiversity Registers, where they maintain the information related to genetic resources as well as the associated traditional knowledge. Okay, that is one of the components or the work that they do. The other thing is they are responsible for, they're the authority wherein if you are going to access any genetic resource, in India, we usually refer to as biological resource in the Act. So if you're going to access it, if you're going to use it, if you're going to seek any commercial benefit out of it, or if you're going to seek any IPR out of it, then you will have to take certain permissions through an agreement with the National Biodiversity Authority, which is the regulatory body here. Okay. Then even the quantum of benefit sharing, that is how you should share benefit with the people who are involved, that is the knowledge holders, that is also mentioned in the Biological Diversity Act. Okay. So these are the few of the things that I want to tell you and that you need to remember, since I think many of you could be, working in the area of documenting or even doing research in traditional knowledge, then you have to keep in mind what are the legal provisions. Of course, this is related only to biological resources. We do not have an act which talks of non-biological resources. What do I mean by non-biological resources? It could be anything. It could be, where you have these traditional handicrafts, art and crafts, or you can have the other things like we talked about traditional cultural expressions, or even metals and minerals and materials. All those things also could be non-biological related. Okay, we do not have an act, but ethics, when I'm talking about ethics, it applies to all. Okay. So also we need to remember what we discussed yesterday, section 3P, no invention which is in effect traditional knowledge can be patented. Okay. So if you are doing research in the area, then we need to understand that if it is merely traditional knowledge, then it won't be patented. If there is any additional incremental useful, invention which comes out of a traditional knowledge, probably that could be patentable depending on whether it fulfills the criteria of an invention. Then I also told you about geographical origin disclosure. This is a requirement which is there in the Indian Patent Act. So whenever you use any material that is biological for any invention, you will have to disclose the source and geographical origin. Why? Because this in way protects the person who holds that knowledge or the biological material. Okay, so nobody can use the material without pretending that it is their own. Okay, so in that way, this disclosure requirement helps the owner or the custodian of the particular biological material or associated TK. So any kind of wrongful disclosure or incorrect disclosure is ground for pre-grant opposition. So in case you have such a patent and you have not disclosed the source or origin, it can be ground of not only opposition, it can also cause revocation of your patent if somebody contests it on those basis. Okay, so please remember that. So any kind of legislation which is there, you have to remember that an act and knowledge of not knowing is not an excuse. So you will have to know the act, which is why I'm giving you the background for all this. Okay. So next is the Biological Diversity Act, the ABS provisions that are present in the Act. Okay. So I mentioned that the National Biological Biodiversity Authority is the regulatory body. So what does the regulatory body do? Whenever you use any biological resource associated traditional knowledge, transfer of results related to any biological resource, or if you apply for intellectual property rights in or outside India for an invention based on biological resource, you will have to take prior approval by signing an ABS agreement with the National Biodiversity Authority. However, in the current amendment, what has happened is Indian nationals, whenever they do any of the above, if they do not have foreign collaborators, they can register also with the NBA. They need not go for prior approval. Okay. Then equitable benefit sharing, as I said, the National Biodiversity Authority has the authority to actually implement the benefit sharing and also the percentages that you are supposed to share with the knowledge holders or from whoever you have taken the genetic resources or the associated traditional knowledge, this will be on mutually agreed terms. Okay, here the local bodies, for instance, there is a biodiversity management committee at the level of the village or the taluka, which will be a facilitator between the people who are having it, that is the knowledge holders, benefit claimers, and between the applicant. Okay, such benefit sharing as defined in the act can be monetary or non-monetary. So what do we mean by monetary? Monetary will be when you are sharing a percentage of your profits, or you're giving some sort of um, you're giving a percentage of profit, or you're sharing royalties, or you are having commercial venture where they share a certain you do it in collaboration, and then there is a sharing of some commercial benefit directly also. So all these things will be monetary. What is non-monetary? In some way the persons who are utilizing the knowledge are giving it back to the society by means of some contributing to local economy, or they are creating schools, or they are training those people, or helping them in their livelihoods. For instance, if they are artisans and they do not have the wherewithal to use machines and things like that, or something else, then they do those things for them, so that their things become faster, or they facilitate in some way to do their things better. Okay, all those things are non-monetary ways of providing access and benefit sharing. So this formula is decided on a case-to-case basis by the NBA. And if you see the act, it ranges from about 3 to 5% of the um, monetary consideration that will be shared with the NBA. Then NBA will keep some small percentage with itself for carrying out its activities, and the rest it will share with the benefit claimers and the local bodies, okay, for their betterment or for whatever reasons that they may put use of it to. Because basically when you're sharing knowledge, it is or the livelihoods are involved, and the whole community is involved. So any kind of benefit that can go back to the community would be welcome. Okay, so this is also can be in terms of education, capacity building, so on and so forth. So why is the traditional knowledge digital library involved in this work? In the National IPR policy of 2016, it was one of the suggestions or the recommendations that were there was that TKDL should also include oral traditional knowledge in its database, taking care to see that the integrity of the knowledge is preserved and the traditional ways of the people are not compromised. Okay, so in that manner, we have taken up this on as a domain to understand what are the things that are involved in ethically documenting traditional knowledge, so that we fulfill the mandate or the recommendation that is given by the National IPR policy, and we have been working towards this. Okay. So some of the things that I want to flag in this presentation, since many of you would be actually working with traditional knowledge, is what are the concerns, what you must do if you are involved in documentation, dissemination, research, and some kind of R&D, or even when you are involved in some kind of educational things with related to traditional knowledge, then what are the things that you need to keep in mind? Okay, so all these are related to ethics, remember. So it is up to the researcher and up to the organization or the institution to create the necessary ecosystem and infrastructure, so that these whatever traditional knowledge, the way the things related to traditional knowledge are done in an ethical manner. Okay, so what are the concerns? Okay, concerns are that first and foremost, we do not have a formal legal framework. So whenever there is a formal legal framework, it becomes easy because you have protection. If there is any infringement, or if there is any thing that happens against that kind of protection, then you have a legal recourse. You have a mechanism by which you can go and seek redressal. But such a thing does not exist. So this is a major concern while you're handling oral traditional knowledge, and especially so in case of non-biological resources, because an act like Biological Diversity Act also does not exist. So there is completely nothing, no framework, and no legal, even directly or indirectly, that deals with non-biological resources. Okay, so when you're documenting traditional knowledge, there are no uniform SOPs. There is no standard prior informed consent format or any procedure. Okay. And why I'm flagging this is we all know this such documentation having are being done all over the country by several entities in a non-structured manner. Okay, so we have government institutions doing it, we have non-government institutions doing it. I know a lot of students who go to communities, speak to them, collect information, and very often just publish it. Okay, and there are individuals also who are doing this kind of work. So are they collecting it ethically? Are they informing the people from whom they're collecting the information what they are doing it for? What are they going to do with the information? All this is completely unknown. Okay, so this is an area in which there is complete lack of awareness. Okay, and what we spoke about yesterday is exploitation and misappropriation. What will happen is due to the lack of awareness, this can lead to more exploitation or misappropriation. Okay, the other thing is that when you're talking about traditional knowledge, especially in the oral context, or that sustained livelihood is important. Okay, so by using their information, it should not so happen that you are taking their livelihood away from them. So all these things have to be kept in mind. Okay, I have also mentioned publishing articles without due acknowledgement. See, when you're taking information from someone and publishing it, although you may have built up upon it or you may have written the article yourself, all said and done, what is important is the information is somebody else's. So if you don't attribute it to that person or do not include them as a co-author, that is, I mean, in a way, a very big concern in the area of handling traditional knowledge. Also, one more thing, I mentioned some of this information is secret, it is unknown to the world. So it could be possible that it still has a potential to be intellectual property right, that it can gain intellectual property right. So it could be subject matter of patent. So without taking that into consideration and ignoring that, if you publish that matter, immediately it will become prior art. So once it becomes prior art, there can be in no manner you can get intellectual property right over it. So you'll have to keep that also in mind when you are handling any such traditional knowledge. Okay, and then doing research, validation, commercial utilization, and so on and so forth, using these particular traditional knowledge without any benefit to the knowledge holder. Okay, so that is what I mean by benefit sharing. So there is no benefit sharing, again, is disservice to the community. Okay, so what are we doing by improper handling of TK? We are jeopardizing the rights of the knowledge holders. Okay, and we are causing potential loss to the livelihood and giving ground for misappropriation and biopiracy. So keep this in mind when you are dealing with traditional knowledge in any manner. Okay, so what I'll do now is I have picked out certain points dealing with the access, with dissemination, with R&D, and what can be done to create awareness. So all these things I have put in separate slides. They are basically just guidance, okay, to tell you what is possible, what you must do, and what you should not do. Again, this is ethics. So finally, when it comes to actually doing the work, your situation may be different. The actual ground at the ground level, the matter may be different. So you can keep this in mind and apply it and adapt accordingly when such things come in front of you. Okay. So when you talk of access and documentation, first and foremost, what would you do? You would go to the community. You would talk to the people. Okay. So when you're talking to the people, what you will keep in mind? First of all, do it in a collective environment. Try to collect all the people in a community, including the elders, the women, and so on and so forth. So there is community engagement, and that you don't go to only particular people and ignore the others. Okay. Then by this you can build trust with the people. Okay, build trust with the community. Without trust, no kind of documentation or access is possible, because you will always remember, you will always notice that whenever you go to people for asking for information, they are usually closed, because often it has happened with communities and with people who hold such traditional knowledge that they have been kind of cheated out of that knowledge. Somebody would come to them, take that knowledge, and then later on publish it. The community comes to know of it, but they're unable to do anything about it. So they're very wary of a person coming to them and asking for that information. So when you build trust, you will take it in a participatory mode. Then what you have to do, you will have to tell them what you're going to do with the information, why are you collecting the information, how will it benefit them, okay? And seek their explicit consent. Once that consent is given, only then you proceed with, documenting that information. Okay. Then when you're documenting the information, keep in mind the privacy, freedom, moral rights, and sustainable livelihood. What do I mean by moral rights? You must have heard of moral rights in the context of copyrights, okay? Wherein it has certain rights associated. In the sense, a moral right is always the creator's right. Copyrights can be transferred, but a moral right can never be transferred. It is always the creator's right. And what it is relates to, attribution, that particular person is actually the creator. That's one. The other thing is that there should be no distortion or derogation of the particular creation. Okay, this is also a moral right. Fine. So keeping that in mind, similarly, in the case of traditional knowledge, I told you it's a holistic knowledge. It has many aspects associated with it, like spiritual, cultural, also the particular knowledge itself. So whenever you are using that right or accessing that right, disseminating the right, there should be no derogation of it. And in no way it should, kind of insult or, not be in sync with the belief of the particular community which holds that knowledge. Okay. Then taking collective use is important because that will help in checking for variation and duplication. Okay. And comprehensive information. Please record comprehensive information. Often such information is collected from remote areas. So if you don't collect comprehensive information, so it so happen that you have gone once, collected information, you go back, you may not find the person, you may not find the community. Suppose it's a nomadic community and they have moved off, then you will not be able to locate them. And the profile, ecological data, all those things should be complete so that that data is, you need not go and repeat the exercise. That's one thing. And preferably do it in an audio visual mode so that if it's in a different language, or if there are certain plants or certain displays that they have, all those things also get recorded. And most importantly, if the community has any apprehensions, please record that also, because whenever using that for any further R&D, you will have to keep that in mind. Right. Coming to the research and development part. Again, primarily, first, plan activities only with express consent. Okay. Preferably prioritize unaddressed problems of the community. What do I mean by that? Suppose there is a particular community which has a certain problem, especially in the health area, and you are a drug company. I mean, you're doing some drug research, right? So when you're going to the community, it will be important to address that need which they have for particular medicine or particular way of life to improve the condition or to help them in overcoming that particular disease condition. Okay, such a way that R&D can be useful to them. Then avoid conflict with traditions and beliefs. Okay, being a part of a community and understanding how things are will not be true to a third party. Okay, a person who does not come from that community, who does not understand the language, who does not understand the customs. So when you are doing any R&D and finally you get certain results which actually contradict those beliefs, then you'll have to keep in mind that you will have to consult the particular community or particular traditional knowledge holder again, so as to understand whether they are still willing to with you to go ahead with the research. Okay, because they may not be willing, although scientifically what you have done may be correct. It's still, if it is contradictory, then you will need their consent. Okay, then whenever you're doing this, always include those community or knowledge holders along with you in the R&D, even while creating the proposal or proceeding with the proposal. It will help. They may have certain insights. They will have certain, things which they know due to the practice, which will help you in your research, and will also help you improve upon the things that you're going to add in your research. Okay, so keep this in mind. Then whenever you're having research publications, share it with them. Okay, and preferably in a language that they understand. Okay, we publish in English, and when you go to the communities, they may not understand English. So whenever you're sharing information with them, go an extra mile and take that extra step to convert that information into a language that they understand and share it with them. Only then it would be useful to them. Okay, then material transfer agreements, especially when you are using biological. Now biological is one, but you may be dealing with other materials, chemical materials, archaeological materials. In all cases, you must have material transfer agreements with them so that there is a proper understanding of what is to be done and what can or what cannot be done. Okay. All extant laws and procedures, like I mentioned for the Biological Diversity Act, you will have to follow when you're doing R&D. That's very important. You cannot say, I don't know and I didn't, therefore I didn't follow. That is, there is a maxim in law that ignorance cannot be used as a defense. Okay. Then if commercialized, ensure all the benefits are shared. Whether you're able to do it benefit monetary or non-monetary is immaterial, but in some way it should benefit the society or the community that you're taking the information from. All right. Then we come to the key considerations relating to dissemination of information. I think this is very, very common to all of us. So you go talk to people and then you go and publish this article. Okay, this is one very common way of dissemination of information, especially we do as researchers. Okay, one important thing that I want to flag here is whenever such an information is published, though this is not your prerogative as the researcher, but in case you are on the side of the publisher or you are an editor of a journal, please remember that you take the mandatory PIC along with the manuscript submission for publication. So you know that the particular author has gone, spoken to the person, taken prior informed consent, and then only is publishing. Okay. So this should be a thing with all journals that they should publish mandatory PIC along with articles. Similarly, whenever you're publishing confidential secret information, be sure that it cannot be monetized. Okay, there is no IP protection possible. Only then publish. Because these are things you as a researcher may know, but a person sharing that information may not be literate as you, may not be aware of IP protection. So it is your duty as a person who is, talking to them and accessing that information or publishing that information to inform them about all these things. And preferably include these people as co-authors. See, what is the purpose or what is the logic of using a co-author in a paper? When you include co-authors, everybody has a contribution towards the paper. Okay, that is when you include them as co-authors. So there people from whom you have taken the knowledge, they are important contributors. So it would be good if you can include them as co-authors. Okay. And use a due consultative process when doing further research. Okay. And if you do further research and do further, R&D with it or something and publish more papers, then also keep it in mind that you have taken the original information from somebody. So the PIC is prior informed consent. ABS is access and benefit sharing. Please remember. Okay. Then most important, remember, moral rights are to be respected. So do not derogate the information in any way. So if it has that spiritual connotation, if it has the cultural connotation, when you publish the article, you must not belittle or demean that particular aspect of it. Okay. That's just one example. Derogation or, can be in any form, not just this aspect. Then the aspect of awareness and education. See, one way what we are doing now is also awareness and education. We are capacity building for people who may or may not know about how to handle traditional knowledge ethically. Okay, by doing things like this, maybe I'm telling you a few things. You maybe get informed about certain things. You would go and spread it to more people. So this, in a way, is building capacity of the research community, of the community who is working in these areas, and so that more awareness gets done and more people start working with traditional knowledge in a ethical manner. Okay, so teaching modules and capacity building workshops will go a long way in doing this particular work. Also, inclusion of ethical aspects in curriculum of educational courses. So IKS being included in educational courses is a very big step. Okay, so a lot of us are now learning about the knowledge systems, learning about our ancient heritage. In a similar manner, if you also include what are the ethical aspects of handling, documenting, dissemination, R&D with TK, that would be very useful. Okay, so that's a point that we need to remember as educationists or institutions, people responsible for running curriculum in institutions. The other thing is due appreciation and awards for knowledge holders and providers. You must remember these are people who are working in close communities, they often are, they benefit, it's the way they do things are as a service to society. Often healers, you may have heard, do not even take monetary charge from any patient that they treat. Okay, for them it is the service, it is the knowledge of having healed the person which is their reward. Okay, so such people should be appreciated. And it's a good thing that in the recent times, you may have heard a lot of people from the traditional healer community have been awarded the Padma Shri. So in a way, as a country, as a nation, we have recognized their contribution to society. One example is Lakshmi Kuti. She is a traditional healer from the Kani tribe. She deals with poisons, snake bites, toxins, and things like that. And she can handle more than 500 medicines. And she has been a very big, played a very big role in treating her community, from a lot of ailments. So this is just a snapshot of so many people from the traditional communities have got the necessary recognition at the national level for their contributions. I think you all must have heard of Nana Mal also, who is a 90-year-old who performs yoga like a pro, nothing that you and I would be able to do. So her contribution towards yoga and the propaganda or the propagating yoga has been very important. So I spoke about prior informed consent, and I think this is an important aspect. So I'll quickly go through. If you are going to document, traditional knowledge, you need to primarily have prior informed consent. So what is prior informed consent? You need to have it in proper written format, okay? And this has to be signed, or you can take a finger this from the person, but they should be aware. Or the prior informed consent can also be in audio video format. Okay, so the consent is for what? Consent is for them to understand that they're sharing the information and why they are sharing it, and what will purpose it will be used for, and they are willingly doing so. Okay, so generally when you share it, share with due consultation, put all the names as possible there, their willingness, extent of willingness, whether they want to share partial information, full information, all those things. Then a declaration by the knowledge holder, declaration by the recording organization, along with examples of AVS, just to make them understand that if they do share the information, these are the possible benefits that can accrue from it. Okay. You also need to have an explanatory note for the knowledge holders. Okay. You're talking about voluntary consent based on the PIC that the knowledge holder is given. Remember, this can be retracted later. So at this point of time, I as a knowledge holder gave you the consent. I thought at this time, okay, I want to share the information with you. But later on, due to certain reasons or due to certain situations, that same thing does not exist and the knowledge holder no longer wants to share, it can be retracted. Okay, remember that. Then record of whatever you do, that is you take, that should be accessible to the knowledge holder family or community. And as I said, it should be in a language that they understand. Okay, so partial or full disclosure is acceptable. See what happens, sometimes when entire information is given, there is a chance of misappropriation. So if required, you can explain to them that you give partial information. Suppose somebody wants to commercially exploit it, they can come directly to you and take the information from you. All the this particular PIC or the record will do is connect the outside world with your knowledge. Okay, so that could be a form of partial disclosure, or the information could be partially disclosed. Although you may have recorded the entire information, you will disclose only certain amount of information. Then they also have to understand that not all information is commercially viable. Okay, so sometimes benefits may not accrue. Okay, that also need to be understood. And even when there is further value addition or validation, as I mentioned, when you do with R&D, including publication, you still need to acknowledge them. What are the challenges in implementing PIC? There are challenges. Okay, when you go to the ground level, you would understand. To identify a community leader or a competent person who would sign on behalf of everyone, that sometimes may be a challenge. Sometimes there is a dispute among community members, among the knowledge holders and knowledge practitioners. Then it becomes difficult to bring them together and implement the PIC. Similarly, there can be different communities. For instance, the Kani tribe that I spoke about is spread in the hill areas of both Tamil Nadu and Kerala. Okay, so they are there in many places. So if there are such communities where they are distributed, then identifying them and taking it from all of those people, that also may be difficult. Then mistrust is one thing I said. So trust is the most important thing. If you don't gain trust, then gaining signatures or prior informed consent in written form or in video form would be very difficult. Okay. Then sometimes it so happens that after you have implemented the PIC and gone ahead with your work, sometimes new benefit claimers will crop up because they came to know of it. So then what to do? Okay. So those things also have to be kept in mind. And of course, the retraction of PIC, that's also a possibility. Okay. So when I speak about responsible documentation and TK utilization practices, keep three things in mind: free prior informed consent, acknowledgement, that is attribution, and access benefit sharing. The two examples I have displayed over here of Masterac and Wormivet, they are actual examples of benefit sharing. Okay, so this information has been taken from grassroots by National Innovation Foundation, commercialized, and benefit has gone back to the community. Okay. Similarly, if you go to the website of the National Biodiversity Authority, you will find several examples of access and benefit sharing. Okay, many of them are actually, just institutions or organizations or commercial businesses taking these biological resources and paying upfront fees for it. But this is one example where a person who doing a PhD work took some ethnomedicinal information from the city community. And what she said was, my give back would be that all my research results can be given to the community and shared with the SPB, and they can also utilize it the way they think fit. Okay. So in that way, she contributed to the community. The other examples are, like I told you, most of it is utilization of genetic resources. So here you have L'Oreal. So L'Oreal has used this Glycyrrhiza glabra, and they have paid an upfront fee. Similarly, you have another Hindustan Lever. They used it for some FMCG products and paid upfront fee. These are old data. You may think, why 5 lakhs? That is such a small amount. This is a little bit of an old data, and it depends, of course, on the quantity that they have taken. Okay. Then again, benefit sharing. There are some complexities associated with benefit sharing also. Like, for instance, the knowledge or practice does not pertain to bioresources. So there is no NBA to regulate it or help you decide a percentage of what contribution needs to be made as benefit sharing. Then knowledge is distinct, but it has no immediate takers, or it has no monetary value or limited monetary value, or it is associated with depleting natural resources. Then the ethical conundrum comes. So if you are going to utilize it in a big way, what will happen? Suppose the natural resource gets, extinct, then what to do? Okay. So these are things that you have to consider when handling, using, as well as benefit sharing. Because once you start benefit sharing with people, then they get excited by the monetary benefits coming to them, and that will lead to actually extinction of species or extinction of biological resources. Keep in mind that that should not be. Conservation is an important aspect. Then there could be several benefit claimers. Then how do you facilitate the access and benefit sharing? Also, fixing the contribution and share of benefits to all the parties, that also may be not very clear. Okay. And sometimes the ownership of the resource and knowledge are distinct and not integrable. I hope you understand what I mean. I mean that if you have a resource that is a genetic resource, it could be a plant. So the growers and the custodians, or the people who are handling that, is different. And the people who are using it and who are having the knowledge related to it are different. And they do not, come on the same page. Okay. In that case, then what to do? How do you benefit share? There are several examples of good practices, prior informed consent and ABS in abroad. Okay, so this has been done in many places. Some examples I have cited. These slides, of course, will be shared with you, so you can have a look. But there are some things as organizations you can keep in mind. So we create good governance and institutional structures. So you have, for animal testing, or when you're using animals in research, you have ethics committees. Similarly, you can have ethics committees, create ethics committees for handling this traditional knowledge. Okay, when such institutional structures are created, then it will be, the ethical practices can be monitored and regulated. All right. Then maintaining characteristics of ecosystems and natural habitats. By ecosystems, I don't simply mean a terrain or a plant or a that, or a particular biological resource. Ecosystems could also mean, like in the case of artisans and things like that, when they have a certain way of doing their work and gaining livelihood from it. When you as an external person go in and do certain things like sharing or disseminating, that ecosystem remains balanced and doesn't get disturbed. Okay, it can get enhanced but not disturbed. Then distribution of income that is generated, it should be shared at all levels and to all actors of the chain. And PIC at the stage of review, that's very important. So you upload the PIC at that stage. Okay? These are some global best practices. I won't go into them. And the only thing why I have shared it here is to tell you that these things are possible. You can go and have a read. They are extensive, very elaborate information available in these sites. Okay. So by all this that we have discussed today, what we hope to achieve, we hope to achieve ethical handling of knowledge. So how will we do that? Just a recap: mandatory prior informed consent, share recorded information with knowledge givers in a language that they understand, in a manner that they understand, protect the livelihoods of the knowledge holders, be sure that they get fair and equitable benefits arising out of the information that they have shared, conservation of the habitats as well as the ecosystems that I spoke about. Then create models of sharing knowledge to third parties. This will go a long way. You know, people need not reinvent the wheel. So if you have done something and successfully implemented it, please share it so that the others can also do so and have the ethical practice, the good spreads basically. Okay. So we have been working on this and we have created a guidance document for handling and working. Much of the information I'm sharing from you is already present in this document. So what we have done is basically created this for handling TK in CSIR. But at some later point, when this gets the necessary approvals within CSIR, we propose to share it with other users also, and researchers who are involved in this work, so that it benefits all the community, the researchers, as well as the traditional knowledge holders and the society in general. Okay. So thank you for your patient listening. I'll stop sharing now. Over to you, Piyushji.
Yes, Pranam madam, thank you very much for your informative session. So we just complete the assessment quickly,
Yes.
then we'll
Yes.
come back to
Sure.
session. So we are sharing assessment link in the chat box. Please complete within 10 minutes. It's 4:21, so we'll complete 4:31. We have also uploaded in the Google Drive folder. So whoever watching through YouTube, please access your Google Drive folder and complete the assessment. After the assessment, we will come back to our question and answer session. Please submit your assignment. You have another 2 minutes. Please submit your responses. You have another 2 minutes. Time up. I hope everyone has submitted. So we request all the participants, please type your questions and queries in the chat box. We'll pick up your questions. Yes, then we'll answer. Ma'am, one question comes. What are your thoughts on ancient healing practices such as Reiki, which is believed to have originated in India but was later rediscovered and popularized in Japan? Do you see any ethical concerns in this context? And would you recommend further research in this field?
See, the things that I spoke about, I told you that this is oral traditional knowledge or the kind of knowledge that is in undisclosed form. Now, I'm not sure about Reiki. Reiki is widely practiced. Okay, so whether Reiki is public domain information or it is something which is belonging to a particular traditional knowledge holder. The other thing is, when I'm speaking about public domain information, this is kind of in the traditional knowledge context. Often it is said that nothing is a public domain because it is always originating from some community or some person. Okay, given that in context, uh, I do not understand the question that you're asking. That is, are there any ethical concerns? See, the ethical concerns that I spoke about are all that you should do the work with the prior informed consent of the knowledge holder or the person who is doing the practice. Now, Reiki, for instance, is very widespread and you are not specifying what exactly you want to use. It is like saying that what are my thoughts on using Ayurveda, for instance. So, like Ayurveda is a very widespread practice, and of course, you can do research on it, right? You can do research on it, and if you are you are able to get something out of the original information or the traditional knowledge in a manner that is beneficial today and which is different from the original information that is present, then of course it would be beneficial and useful to all. Thank you.
Another question, what is the way forward for all of us once this workshop is completed? From Haripriyaji.
So Haripriyaji, the way forward, see, we are only sensitizing and creating awareness. I don't know exactly what you do and how you are going to use this knowledge that you have gained from here. I hope you have gained something. So if you have, then how are you going to put it to use? That would depend on what is the work that you do. Suppose you're a researcher, I'm sure you would understand that having gained all this information about traditional knowledge, about IPR, about people's rights, would tell you how to adapt or how to make use of all this information when you are doing the work that you do. Okay. And I believe now, especially in the current context, IKS and research in IKS is gaining a lot of prominence. So you may also get in touch with the IKS division and see
Yes.
what are the things that are possible for you in future.
Yes.
That would be a very good thing.
From IK's perspective, we can recommend. So after the workshop, see, one thing you have to identify what is the relation between your existing domain and the TK, traditional knowledge of that particular. And you have to make linkages. And one thing, as a researcher, you can publish papers. That's important. And through the proposal, you can connect with IKS initiatives. There are 4 5 initiatives. One is research outcome based proposal research. Second is centers. Third is internship. Then text writing, textbook writing. So through your interest you can connect, but concept is how you can make our traditional knowledge in practical way, so there would be some practical utility, so you can connect according to your domain. Then there was another from Ananta ji. Do we need to take permission from you if we want to show your presentation slides? So it's
No, you can attribute it to me. That's all. See, we have also used information from various sources, so this is not a closed information.
Is CSIR TKDL offering PhD program in IPR fields? Ma'am, is there any opportunity?
Not that, I mean, IPR, yes, I think NISPER you can check as a lab. They have something on information sciences. So you can look at NISPER. But otherwise, all the particular labs, they work in their domain and offer PhD in that particular domain, the work that they do.
Pranam Arye, I hope.
Namaste, namaste. Vijayalakshmi ji, thank you
Namaste.
for another enlightening session. I just have a previous question about sharing your presentation, and I think I just wanted to make a comment on that. That I think in any case, if one is using or repeating the information from any source, I think it's always a good practice in the research world, in the academic world, to acknowledge that source. Even if it is like you've taken material from other places,
Yes.
but you've taken the trouble to put it together and to make a presentation with
Yes.
in a certain context. So my humble request to all the participants to follow this ethical protocol, that no matter what you're using from any source, please cite the source of it and give due acknowledgement, because I think that is very, very important ethical practice in general.
That's why I said
And I think the whole
attribution.
Yes. No, absolutely. But I just wanted to make a
Yes.
very strong point on that. And also to say that the whole IPR thing is also nothing but that in principle. That if there is a source and there is a knowledge tradition, then I think it is just the right thing to try and protect it, so that those who have created that knowledge are the true beneficiaries of that knowledge system, and that it can then be made available and disseminated better. Yes. Yes, Piyushi, please.
PSG, we can't hear you.
Sorry. So one question comes from Dr. Kumarji. Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, homeopathy, etc. comes under traditional knowledge systems, and modern science does not confirm their unique practices. Should we grant funds to pursue their research? Question mark.
Um, if you
So on
notice,
IKS,
a lot of, yeah.
yes, please, Badatu.
So, I mean, I'm not clear about the question, but then as far as I understand, if you notice, a lot of the central councils, they have research councils and they do work on Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha. So, research is ongoing in all these things. It is maybe in terms of validation or in maybe in terms of some sort of innovation in the existing knowledge and information.
Yes, and in IKS there is also one theme that is health and wellness. So there,
Yes.
all those things
Supported.
can be incorporated.
It is
So
supported.
yes. Then, what are the steps we can take to protect the IP rights of the indigenous people in case of herbal medicine and their knowledge in some traditional methods involved therein? So what are the steps we can take to
So
protect?
one word of caution is not always IP rights exist when you talk about herbal medicine. Okay. Much of it may already be available in text and so on and so forth, then it will not be really IP. Okay. But given that, and if there is a possibility of potential IP, like I mentioned, in some cases it is possible. So there are systems and mechanisms in place by which like I spoke about even the National Innovation Foundation, where they help people to gain IP rights. And when we are talking about that information which is in possession of healers and maybe not generally available to people, but we need that particular information doesn't get patented. So that kind of the preventive thing that we have been doing by documenting and creating prior art, that will also protect the rights of the healers in a way. It may not be IP rights, but their rights in general. Thank you.
Yes. So we can take another 1-2 questions. Madam, I would like to know if there is any format to collect PIC. Is there any format to
PIC.
collect PIC?
Okay. So we do have a format. So like I said, when we share the guidance document with the other people, we would be able to give you. But if you wish to know, you can write to us. I can give you some insights into what is the kind of information that needs to be included in the PIC. We can share that information.
So if you have any other questions, so we can take 1 or 2. Otherwise, we can just end, ma'am.
Piyushi, there was
Yes.
Piyushi?
Vadatu आ रही है?
There was
Vadatu?
just this one interesting question here, where he's
Yes.
saying that this was from the I saw one question here which was talking about how do we use the how do we use the knowledge, traditional knowledge, in the corporate context, but without exploiting the resources and without exploiting the people there. So here this was a question by Dr. Indu Singh, where she's saying that how can we use knowledge for corporate purposes and profit, but without causing any harm to the.
So some of the things we already mentioned in today's slide, where we are talking about using it for commercial benefit, where we talked about R&D. Okay. So in a similar manner, you can adapt those things that where I mentioned that in an ethical manner, how to use the information. So there are steps. Like when you take the information, you need to have prior informed consent, and you have to explain to them what use you're going to put use to. And if you are going to gain any commercial benefit out of it, you will have to share a percentage back to the original knowledge holders from whom you're taking the information. That would be good ethical practice. But there are other things you can incorporate and, can make it better. Thank you.
Yes, just the question was actually, he said,
Yeah.
Dr. Hindu Singh was asking, how can ethical principles be integrated into corporate profit models to ensure that
Yeah.
biodiversity is not compromised for short-term financial gains?
True. So, see, some things about sustainable, sustaining ecosystems also I spoke about. So the problem is mostly there are no such mechanisms or no such, like for instance, when you have you have corporate manuals, how you conduct business. Okay. In such a manner, if you have all these things in place where it is already written, then it automatically gets integrated into the way you work. So when you are having certain principles, like I'm talking about PIC or ABS and all these things is already in place, and when you handle such information or use such information, you already have a protocol put in place, then it will help. That's what I mean.
Yes. And on the other side, Dr. M. Shivkumarji is saying that as far as modern medical science is concerned, many of our traditional medicinal practices are proven to be injurious to health. So he's saying, how do you ensure that these measures are not harmful to us? Saying that it can
I,
happen that in some cases, maybe a traditional medicine has backfired. Then is there some way of protecting, or is there some way of doing something on those lines?
So I would take this with a pinch of salt. Okay. Why are we saying that it is harmful? See, what we have to understand is there are some methods prescribed in preparation of medicines. Often, when you talk about the traditional medicines being handed out in pouches nowadays, it is because the medicines have not been prepared in the manner that they should be prepared. Okay, which is why they become harmful. And also, the ingredients which are there, often people don't know to identify the plant itself, so it is possibly that they're not using the right ingredients. And especially the harmful effects that we have noticed in the recent times are all because of metal content. Okay. And metal content, when you say the processes for purification or conversion into non-toxic forms in the text are very complex, so are they being used at all, which is why these harmful effects are happening, and people are getting affected by those things by taking such medicines. That's a thing that we'll have to look into.
So whether we are adhering to the authenticity of the original
Yes.
prescription.
Yes.
And then he had a second part to that question where he's saying how are capacity building he's saying how are capacity building initiatives being designed to integrate and strengthen IKS and TK within rural communities across India.
Okay. Capacity building. See, rural, I don't know. See, we as people, like in these setups, we are not doing in rural areas. But I know of National Innovation Foundation. I know the associated organizations like Srishti and Gyan. They work at grassroots levels. I know Professor Anil Gupta, for instance, goes on Padayatras and actually speaks to those people and explains to them what can be done and what cannot be done. So some work is being done, but it is not as much as it should be. It needs a still lot more effort and lot more people to be included, so that this our rural population comes to know of all these things. It needs more effort.
Yes. And there was Kaka Devi ji from Arunachalam who said, who recognized the fact that, that heavy metals are toxic to health, etc. And was asking, how can you suggest ways to make our children aware of IKS, especially those that are helpful for our community welfare?
So maybe IKS can
So how do
answer
we?
this, because you're already doing some work in this area, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes. So one of the things that we were very keen on doing, when the syllabus was being drafted, was how do we integrate some very basic awareness about health and well-being into the syllabus itself. So just one good news for everybody is that now we have made compulsory the health and well-being as a course, which is a mandatory course. And this health and well-being will have components of nutrition and many other things. And we've tried to bring in inspirations from the Ayurveda and the local knowledge traditions also within that. Besides that, also introducing Indian games, Bharatiya Khels within so that we are not just dependent on the international sports for our health. Simple games that have we've been playing through the community for a long time. So these games also help to strengthen community ties, intergenerational bonding, and keep you connected to the knowledge traditions of the soil. So these are certain small efforts that have happened, and I think in the NCERT syllabus there are two courses that have been made mandatory in the CBSE syllabus. One of them is the arts and cultures have come in as not just optional subjects but mandatory, and the other is this health and well-being component is also there. They've made it as compulsory subjects. So we'll have to see what happens in the implementation, and then sincerely hope that it will see the light of day in the positive intention with which it has been drafted. So,
So I think that question is answered.
yes. There's just one from Tarseem Lal using is clinical trial allowed after PIC?
PIC is something different. See, PIC is when we are saying that we are going to utilize that knowledge you take from the person so that the person is aware of what use or what, is giving an informed consent that that knowledge can be used, disseminated, or, in any manner transferred. Okay. Clinical trials is entirely different. That is something which you are going to use as a drug. It is a regulatory thing that you have to do so that it can be used for human consumption. So there is no connection, there's no relation between the two.
There is, I think Sudhir Karleji is here. He's adding that uh, in the eastern regions, or no, that is he's saying that how could we bring aware or how could we be aware of such opportunities in terms of capacity building throughout rural India? Thing and if we want to contribute. So I don't know, Sudhirji, if you want to unmute and maybe make your question clearer, where if you can just say exactly what you want to communicate here. So, Devji, would you want to raise your hand, digital hand, so that she can unmute you and you can actually ask this question properly?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to ask my question or clarify myself. So, first of all, I asked the question regarding the capacity building throughout the rural part of India. Madam has answered that, but I want to know that how could I or uh, the anyone from the IKS and uh, IKS and TKDL listener they want to contribute in terms of capacity building throughout the rural part of India, or they can be a part of that that mission. How could they will be aware of?
So does IKS have any such provision? Usually.
So if I may just try and attempt one thing there. So one request that we have that as IKS is spreading in different subjects, and in fact that is what has been missing in the curriculum right now across the country, is the contributions of every particular region, the contributions of the knowledge traditions of every particular region within their syllabi. So right now, whatever we are teaching across the country has a more global kind of a content. So what is the need of the hour is for supposing you're teaching, sir, what subject do you teach?
I think
Sir,
is
what you teach? So, for example, so whatever, if you're teaching, let's say, if you're an engineering teacher and you're teaching on civil engineering. So, if you're teaching on civil engineering, then if you're teaching on civil engineering, then can you bring in aspects of your local civil engineering knowledge traditions that are there? Or if you're teaching whatever the science, if you're teaching botany or whatever. So, what is the local knowledge within that? Can you incorporate that into your syllabus?
Yes, I think Sudhirji is disconnected. Huh. Sudhirji got disconnected. So, Arya, is there any question? Hmm? Arya, OP?
I think
Yeah,
she
just
is
one second.
also
No. Yes, yes. No, I think there is no other question. I think if there's anybody else who wants to maybe, ask something, then they can raise their digital hand. Otherwise, we can close the session. So if there's anybody else who wants to ask the question, kindly raise your hand and digital hand, and Piyushi will unmute you.
Astu.
But
Dr.
Vijayalakshmi, I think
Ji,
many people are very grateful. Many participants are very grateful for what has been shared. I think this is very helpful for their own practice and study. Thank you very much.
yes. So now we can end with Shanti Mantra. Madam, do you have anything to say? So before we close, we just wanted to inform you that the 5th day is on Monday, and there would be 2 sessions. The first session is the concluding session, will be taken by our madam, Vishwajanani madam, and that second session is the final assessment. There you have to answer 40 MCQ questions within 50 minutes, 45 to 50 minutes. Astu? So. ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Pranam madam, see you.
Thanks to all the participants. Thank you.
Yes, thanks all the participants. Yes, to join with us, although everybody has busy schedule.
Yes.
Pranam.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you.